Welcome back. Well, we've had a look at a few different ways of describing data that we've imported to Pandas and into a data frame. Let's have a look at a couple of different ways we can view and select data. So we'll come down here, we'll put another little heading in. So we go viewing and selecting data. We're going to hit escape and M for markdown, shift and enter because we're keeping our notebooks nice and clean and communicative right from the beginning. So to begin, one of the first things you'll do is have a look at the head of your data frame. And now remember, this has brackets after it, so it's a function. And what this is going to do is return the first or the top 5 rows of your data frame. Now you might be thinking, why 5? Well, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. But 5 seems like a pretty good number. And so in practice, what you'll probably be doing is manipulating your data frame in some way and then calling head on it fairly often so you don't have, now our data frame's only 10 rows, so calling the whole thing isn't actually too bad. But imagine if you had thousands of these. So what head does is it gives you a quick snapshot in a small little space of what your data frame contains. So if you make a couple quick changes here and there, you might want to look at the top 5 rows. And if 5 isn't enough, maybe you want to look at the top 7. Well, the beautiful thing about head is that you can type in a number here and it will return that many rows. So you can have a play around and return whatever amount of rows you want. Now, for some reason, if you wanted the bottom of your data frame, you can use .tail and that will return, you might have guessed, the bottom 5 rows. Now, this is handy if you're doing some alterations on the bottom of your data frame rather than the top, and so the changes will only appear towards the bottom. Something like that. And tail's much the same. You can put in any kind of number you want here, press shift and enter, and it will return the bottom 3 rows there. Now the next 2 functions that we're going to look at are lock and ilock. So let's write them down here, lock and .ilock. Now before we go into the details, remember, we always want to run code first. If in doubt, run the code. That's our motto. So let's create a series here so we can demonstrate the difference between lock and ilock. So I'm going to make one called animals. What's your favorite animal? Maybe, since we're using pandas, maybe we'll put a panda in there. And one more, snake. Now we're going to set the index here. Now, if we created a series, by default, the index will be 0 to however many things we have here. But let's actually see that rather than talk about it, because remember, if in doubt, run the code. Animals 0 to 4 in order. But if we wanted our own custom index, which we can do by passing the index parameter, and then we put in a list to say 0, 3, and we want this index to be out of order on purpose so we can demonstrate lock and ilock. There we go. So we have 5 things here, 5 things here, both Python lists. Now if we run this, we can see that our index has changed. So let's have a look. Animals.lock 3. If we call this, what do you think will come back? And lock you can consider as short for location. So let's try. Shift enter, dog and snake. Beautiful. So what lock refers to is the index numbers. So because we have 3 and 3 here, it returns 2 items. Let's try animals.lock 9. What do you think this will come back with? Which animal? Shift enter, bird. The reason being is because bird is at index 9. So we created bird, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, index 9. Okay, now let's try our car sales data frame. If you're not sure what this looks like, we'll run it here. So we can see, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3. The index is still in order here. Beautiful. Now let's run lock on this. .lock 3. What do you think this will come back with? Which car? Let's try it out. Oh, beautiful. Comes back with position 3. A beautiful black BMW for $22,000. It can be all yours. I could become a car salesman. What do you think? So now let's try another one. Let's try ilock this time. We'll put ilock here. So we go animals.ilock3. This time we're doing .ilock instead of just lock. So if we have 5 items here, what do you think this will come back with? Let's try it out. Shift Enter, Panda. Now, so we can see it, let's put a new cell here and go animals. Beautiful. So what ilock refers to position. So we can see here 0, 1, 2, 3. If this was in order, remember, Python lists and data frames in series start from 0. ilock refers to position, whereas lock refers to index. Let's try maybe with our car sales data frame, car sales.ilock3. It comes back with the same as lock. That is because if we go up, actually, let's just do it here. Car sales, if we have a look at our data frame, ilock, position 3, remember because ilock refers to position, so 0, 1, 2, 3, is the same as index 3. So that's the main 2 points you have to remember about ilock and lock, is that ilock refers to position, and we'll put in here lock. Lock refers to index. They're the main 2 differentiations there. Okay, now the beautiful thing about this is that with ilock and lock, you can use slicing. So if you've ever used Python lists, you might be familiar with slicing, but if not, I'll show you what that looks like. So we might type in animals.ilock:3. And what this means is, rather than talk about it, let's run the code, is give us the items in animals up to position 3. Now, ilock doesn't include position 3. So it'll give us, remember, start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to give us up to 3. Now let's try it with the car sales data frame. Car sales.lock:3. Shift and Enter. There we go. It's given us up to and including index 3. Basically, this is the same as calling head, but with 4. So car sales.head 4. Excellent. Okay, let's keep going. Now, we've seen this previously, but let's say we wanted to select just this make column and have a look at what's going on there. So the way to select a column is to type in its name in square brackets next to the name of the data frame as a string. Shift Enter. There's the make column. Let's have a look at the color column. Car sales, color. Excellent, we've selected that. Now there's 2 ways you might see. I want you to be familiar with both of these ways of selecting a column. So if we go car sales.make, it's easier to type than something like that, but this is the same thing. Let me demonstrate. Car sales make. These 2 lines of code are going to do the exact same thing. Let's prove it. I'll put a split in here by hitting Control-Shift-. We're going to go make. Excellent. And we're going to go car sales.make. Now, the only real difference between these 2 is the syntax. So whichever one you prefer, you might want to use, but what you should know about the dot notation is that if your column name has a space in it, the dot notation won't work. So if we try to do this for odometer km, it'll come back with an error. But if we put a cell in here and go car sales odometer km, run this, it'll return the odometer. So they're the 2 main differences between selecting a single column. And now one last thing before this video gets too long is that if you wanted to select a single column but put a little bit of a filter on it, let's do it with the make column, but we only want rows with the car make Toyota. So can you decipher what's going on here? We're saying car sales, okay, and then we're passing it this little condition here. This is called Boolean indexing. Let's hit Shift Enter to have a look. So this is going to say, hey, Pandas, give us a car sales data frame, and this condition is I only want the car sales data in the make column, which are equal to Toyota. Now, what if we only wanted maybe those with over 100,000 kilometers on the data, on the odometer? I've got data on the brain. That's why we're saying it. Let's get odometer here. KM, because remember, we can't do the dot notation. So you can create a habit which one you want to type. Usually you pick one way of selecting a single column and stick with that throughout your entire notebook. So we want greater than 100,000. Now, this is going to give back the rows that fulfill this condition. And so you can imagine how advanced you could get with this. If you had, say, 100,000 different cars, you might put in a few more different criteria in here. But this is just a few simple use cases of how we can view and select data. Now, there's a couple more we're going to go through, but to prevent this video from going for too long, we're going to take a little break, go back over what we've gone just through and practice a little bit before the next one. But otherwise, we'll see some more ways of selecting and viewing data in the next video.